First of all, I would like to extend a real warm welcome to Peter Hansford, who's our Chief Construction Advisor in the UK, who's been in post, I think, for 2 years now, a bit more than that, has been really sort of guiding, inspiring, cajoling the BIM task group to make progress and to deliver. So, Peter, if I could hand over to you, that would be excellent. Thank you very much.
Well, Anne, thank you very much indeed, and it's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I'm going to address the big picture, and I'm going to leave the detail to the much clever speakers here today, some of whom you've already heard from, I know. And I'm not going to be using buildingSmart speak, I can tell you. I always find it a challenge following my good friend and colleague David Phipps. It's funny how I'm often billed as being his warm-up act, but I think today he's been mine. So you've already heard from David. I deliberately have no slides today, so you're going to have to listen that little bit harder. Most of you will know that in July of 2013, Government and industry jointly published the Industrial Strategy for Construction, Construction 2025. This is a long-term strategy looking at how government and industry wish to see construction changing in the UK over the next decade. And importantly, Construction 2025 is a partnership between industry and government. It's for industry and government together to make this happen in partnership. And for those of you who don't know, let me take you through the key points in Construction 2025. It starts with a vision of buildings and infrastructure being conceived and built much faster, with greater whole life value and better carbon and energy performance, with construction driving growth across the whole economy, and with UK companies working in partnership in markets at home and overseas. And it's a vision of a world driven by digital technologies in design, manufacturing, logistics, construction, and whole life asset management, with efficient procurement and strong, resilient supply chains. And a vision of an industry that leads the world in research and innovation, in sustainable construction, advanced materials, smart buildings infrastructure, and exciting new technologies. And a construction industry respected by society, with multi-talented young people, girls and boys, aspiring to take up rewarding professional and vocational careers in the built environment, with leaders of our industry joining together to tackle the challenges of the day in productive discussion with government. So the vision is, by the year 2025, construction in the UK has been radically transformed. And the strategy goes on to set out some joint ambitions that industry and government jointly aspire to achieve by 2025. A 33% reduction in both the initial cost of construction and the whole life cost of assets. And note that the emphasis here is on whole life costs. A 50% reduction in the overall time from inception to completion for new build and refurbished assets. A 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in the built environment in both the building and operating phases. And this is in line with the low carbon route map to 2050. And a 50% reduction in the trade gap between total exports and total imports for construction products and materials, with more products and materials being sourced in Britain. Now, clearly, we're not going to achieve these ambitions by small incremental improvements alone. As an industry, we need to do things very differently, and that's where BIM comes in. Initially, level 2, but ultimately level 3. And I'll come to that. Construction 2025 identifies 5 strategic themes: people, smart, sustainable, growth, and leadership. And today, I want to touch on 2 of these: people and smart. So achieving the ambitious changes set out in Construction 2025 will not happen without a clear focus on the people side of our industry. And I believe this is actually the key for industry and government to be tackling in partnership. The people theme comprises improving the image of construction, securing and developing the skills needed for the future, changing the diversity of the industry, and transforming site working conditions. As an industry, we have a fantastic opportunity to convey the excitement of working in the built environment. Our industry creates some amazing iconic buildings and vital infrastructure which society depends on. And we contribute to the solutions of the major issues of the day, such as tackling the impact of climate change, energy and water shortages, poverty reduction, and we make communities better places for future generations. But to transform construction, the industry must attract and retain the right people, multi-skilled, diverse, creative, hard-working. It must become an industry of choice. And to achieve this, we need to fundamentally change how the general public perceives the construction industry. We must transform our image. To inspire the next generation, girls and boys, to embark on careers in construction, we need to communicate widely the things that we do, the differences that we make to the world, the exciting new technologies we embrace, like BIM. And this must start at a young age, perhaps 11 or 12 years old, or even earlier, certainly before school curriculum choices have to be made. And you may have heard that I've been challenging every construction company in this country, and I'll do it again today, to adopt a school. Whatever size of your company, adopt a school. Build a relationship with the school. Get talking to the school children. Get talking to the teachers. Inspire them about the future of our industry. We also need to increase the capability in the workforce. The UK construction industry faces a pressing need for skilled, capable workers who can deliver transformational change over the next decade. In fact, I would say that over the last year, skills and skills shortages has emerged as being the biggest issue in our industry. And with the wider economy emerging from the recession, construction firms must be able to recruit and retain people in sufficient numbers to meet the increasing demand for construction. And we'll need people with new types of skills as new technologies and new construction methods start to take off. Effectively, we need a BIM literate professional workforce. Lack of diversity in construction has a large bearing on the image of the industry. Less than 14% of people in construction in the UK are women, and only 2% are from ethnic minority groups. And of course, this is far from representative of UK society. And I believe we can start to redress this by focusing on and celebrating the differences that the industry makes to the world. And again, I believe working in BIM is attractive to men and women across our industry. Another area affecting the image of the industry is our working conditions. Our goal must be to create a working environment at least comparable to those in other sectors of the economy, or why not better than other sectors of the economy. And this is about making the construction industry a great place to work in and a great place in which to pursue a career. And BIM, I think, plays to all of these aims. The second theme in Construction 2025 is smart. And the smart theme includes rolling out and further developing BIM, removing barriers to off-site construction, unlocking innovation, and embracing new technology. Technology is moving fast in construction. We're moving quickly towards a digital economy, which is starting to have some profound implications on our built environment. And digital approaches to how we design, manufacture, assemble, manage facilities are starting to transform the way in which construction is carried out. And some impressive efficiencies are already being realised, with around 20% savings being demonstrated in some projects. And everyone in this room knows that government has mandated the use of BIM to level 2 on all centrally procured government construction contracts by 2016. And we're on course for that. And private sector clients are starting to follow suit. And of course, we're starting to develop level 3 BIM. So I'll leave it to others to fully describe level 3 and its benefits. But from my perspective, it's basically fully integrated building information modelling that combines BIM with the Internet of Things, advanced data analytics, and the digital economy. Level 3 BIM will lead to fully computerised construction. Now, of course, a number of things need to be done for the development of level 3, a set of new international open data standards, a new contractual framework for projects, and a great deal of training of clients, public and private. But the benefits are huge. Level 3 BIM will support whole life cost and carbon savings. It will enable continuous monitoring of the conditions and operations of assets, maximising the availability for use and optimising their performance. And it will, I believe, force beneficial change to procurement, delivery and operation, and promote a transformed cultural environment which is more cooperative, more learning-based, more sharing. And indeed, it will drive growth, domestic growth and international growth in technology and construction. So I think this is an exciting prospect, one that will take us towards our ambitions for 2025, particularly in reducing whole life costs, delivering assets faster, and reducing whole life carbon. And the UK's expertise in level 3 BIM should also put us in a really good place to compete internationally, thus boosting our exports and reducing the trade gap. Now, we're only going to deliver more sustainable buildings faster and more efficiently with far less process waste and greater carbon efficiency if we adopt these digital techniques. And BIM is also critical to the successful implementation of a wider off-site manufacturing strategy. From my viewpoint, the benefits of off-site construction are clear. They include greater precision and quality, reduced overall time in manufacture and assembly, and safer and cleaner working conditions. All of these lead towards the ambitions of Construction 2025. And of course, there's more to this than BIM. We have in the UK a world-class science and research base that supports the development of innovative solutions in a number of priority areas. And these solutions need to be exploited across the industry. We're seeing the emergence of technologies in sensors and advanced data management that will become embedded in our assets, creating smart buildings and smart infrastructure. And these will enable performance of the asset to be constantly monitored, and they'll drive substantial efficiency gains in facilities and asset management. And this will be a central tenet of Level 3 BIM. I think it's very exciting. Adopting these innovative technologies will provide asset owners with a full understanding of the performance of their assets, both during construction and throughout their design life. And this will result in smarter designs, using less material, less carbon, and less labour for construction, while still ensuring full resilience of the assets. As I said earlier, over the last year, probably the biggest issue that has emerged in our industry is skill shortages across the board. And a great deal of effort has been applied to attract, retain and develop the people that we need for the future of construction in the UK. But I don't believe it should be just about securing more people. By adopting smart construction techniques such as BIM and off-site construction, we can also gain efficiencies, effectively doing more with the same resource. And this, I believe, is a major gain. And I'm sure that a wider uptake of smart construction will make a big difference in the efficient deployment of our scarce resources. And I'd also like to touch on innovation. Construction Leadership Council has recently determined its innovation priorities for the next 2 or 3 years. What are the things that the industry can focus on collectively that will lead to achieving the ambitions of Construction 2025? 2 of its 4 priorities are number one, to explore introducing more industrial process into both domestic and non-domestic construction. Productionising, horrible word, but productionising house building, making the case for advanced housing and overcoming the barriers, and developing mass customisation of non-domestic buildings, meeting individual customer needs by using repeatable components and processes. And number 2, creating smart infrastructure and smart buildings, including developing the concept of the fully connected home. And both of these are totally dependent on BIM. Earlier this week I was at the launch of the Off-Site Management School, and this, in my view, is a much needed and very welcome initiative. We need to develop our workforce in off-site skills and smart skills. And 3 key features of this new off-site management school are: 1, the school is free at the point of use, providing online interactive learning. Secondly, the business diagnostics software will enable individual businesses to plan their own learning and measure their progress benchmarked against others. And 3, it will have a network of expert advisors provided by the school to serve, which will serve to accelerate collaboration across the supply chain. So, in summary, I'm convinced that the wider uptake of BIM at level 2 and ultimately level 3 will make a big difference to the industry and contribute significantly to the aims of Construction 2025. And I know that I'm preaching to an audience of the converted here today, but to anybody wondering whether to get involved and when to get involved, I'd say absolutely yes, and do it now. So as Chief Construction Advisor, I'm delighted to demonstrate my continuing support. Thank you. And I believe we might have time for a few questions.
Peter, I'd love to take a few questions if there are any.
Me this time. Robert Klashko from BIM for SME. You talk quite a lot about smart buildings, and I would just like to ask the question, when we look at the Internet of Things and the impact that it has on our life already, actually companies like Google and Apple own the data, which strikes me as something we should seek to avoid in a building context. We already look like, if you look at smart metering, for example, where one energy company's meter won't talk to another energy company when a user switches, we already appear to be going down the same route. What is the government doing to make sure that that isn't the case?
Well, I think you've just highlighted one of the challenges. So I think in developing the next stage of this, Level 3 BIM is clearly central to this, but in developing this, these are exactly the sort of things we've got to tackle. I can't stand here today and give you the answer to that, but we're very conscious that that's one of the challenges to be tackled. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Peter. Your talks actually led us in really nicely to the role of buildingSmart International in developing those open standards, so thank you very much. So Richard Petrie is now going to take us through that. So I think...
Got the mic on? Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, so I think...
Thank you. So this is the things I want to cover. I want to go a bit back over the ask, and the sort of scale of ambition, I think, was made very clear just now by Peter Hansford. And what does that mean for standards and for the development of the open technologies that are needed to underpin those ambitions? Where does buildingSmart fit in, and why we need an industry-led community to really develop those standards? Okay. This is a slide that's borrowed from a study done by Autodesk at the end of last year. And one of the key findings from this study was that there are 34 public sector mandates for BIM of one form or another around the world. And my point here is not about any one particular country, but in fact, if people approach this problem in 34 different ways around the world, with perhaps within country numerous different approaches, we will get there very slowly indeed. And it won't achieve the sort of, I think, quite rightly ambitious targets that the government has set out. Peter, I've borrowed one of your tables here because I think the UK government has been bold in setting out those targets. But the point I want to make is that those are very significant, and if they're very significant, they're very important for governments to go after and for industries to go after. So this is, in many ways, that sort of overriding big, hairy goal that the industry has to deliver for societies that they are trying to serve. And in fact, I also contend that we will not be successful as an industry if we do approach this problem in a fragmented way with everybody guarding their piece of competitive advantage. So I think these scale of benefits that are available and the fact that there are so many countries around the world looking at this task means that it is sort of beholden upon the broader construction industry and owner community to really consider how they go forward with this. And that's part of where I want to sort of say, so against those very high ambitions, the buildingSmart also has, if you like, high ambitions. And this is a step forward from where we are today. This blue circle, for my mind, is representing the life cycle of need for an open standard. So we need to define the need, develop solutions, and then deploy those solutions. And I want to use that as a framework within which to help you understand what buildingSmart International and buildingSmart chapters do. Chapters is, again, perhaps a buildingSmart word. Chapters are the national organizations that engage directly with users in different countries around the world. And that chapter program has been going for a long time. Our ambition is to fully enable the benefits of digital ways of working for the built environment sector, industry, client group. And I believe that means that we are aspiring to be the industry standards body of reference, that our chapters must be vibrantly engaged with their local communities, they must be meaningful, and that a quality mark will be recognized as a valuable and important brand for these open standards. And they have, therefore, our chapter program, standards program, working side by side and linked with the quality compliance program through the centre as the axle on which they rest. For me, broadly, we are a very small professional organisation, but actually we are a community of industry professionals, and we're a community for everybody. And our aspiration is to be an open, enabling community at this end of the scale, to be process-led, and effectively be the place where, let's say, technical experts and informed users can meet in a neutral and trustworthy environment to develop the solutions that they need. And those two other organisations, OGC, the Open Geospatial Consortium, and the World Wide Web Consortium, are two bodies that do this job of being the industry open standards body for the geospatial world and for the World Wide Web. And essentially that is the position that buildingSmart wants to occupy for the construction sector. So this is the pyramid of standards from sort of private corporate standards up to the ISO and CEN bodies that we know. And this level here of open industry standards is the position and opportunity for these industry standards bodies. And the idea here is that we, as that tight community of expert, let's say, users and industry people, can work on that solution developed more effectively and efficiently in an international way than other communities can, and therefore that we add value and speed to that process. And through our links and liaison relationships, we can take those up to ISO, CEN, or national standards bodies as is appropriate. I think the key sort of themes that I want to sort of think are necessary and want to communicate to you about how this has to be done, that we need to be working together with other people trying to push forward modern ways of working in the construction sector. So Peter has mentioned the importance of value of built off-site. There is a build off-site group. I would seek to very much to engage with them and be one broad community. And that's trying to provide an open, neutral environment for that. We need to be easy access. That, for me, means we need good communication so you guys can understand us and overcome some of the barriers of terminology. And we need to have clear processes. Above all, we need activity and to build momentum. So this is our organisation chart. But what I really want to bring to your attention is these three programs: standards, compliance, and chapters. And what I want to do now is explain how those activities help governments deliver these ambitions. So the first is the standards program, and the most clear benefit I could point to there is that we are doing solution development. This slide is an example of a recent project which was to develop for the infrastructure community an alignment solution to help them work in the digital world with the IFC tool that has been developed in our community, and also in parallel and easily with the GIS world and the OGS standards that are developed there. That was a very successful collaboration. I think it provides a good example of the working together theme, and this was done in a relatively short period, 9 or so months, and is now available as a standard to be used. The next, the next benefit of the standards program is we provide a forum for international harmonization. And this picture is our standards process. It's our way of working, which we're currently documenting and developing. But the key benefit here is international harmonization. And that's what this process is about, is an ordered way to allow people from different communities to come together and share ideas and work out collectively what are the right solutions and the most efficient solutions for them to be using. So compliance program, this is probably ambitious compared to where we are today, but nonetheless absolutely important. People need to know that this stuff works and is being used properly. And we will establish a program in time whereby we cover the basics of, is it being used properly and does it work? And that goes for software, it goes for individuals, organizations, processes and data and products. This will be probably some time before we have this up and running, but it is absolutely part of the puzzle and necessary. And as Peter said, this transformation that we're really talking about is a medium-term exercise. So I'm confident that this can come into place. I then like to talk about the chapters and their roles. And this diagram collectively is a simplistic representation of the overall, let's say, built environment industry sector and the marketplace. There are important commercial issues within that space, important cultural issues in change, and the technical issues as well. So this is where, if you like, BuildingSmart International has traditionally worked. I'm ambitious for our chapters to work in all three of these spheres, but the point about chapters is that they are delivering today's needs for the in-country community at the level of development and at the stage of maturity that community is, and in accordance with those national programs, whereas BuildingSmart International will work on developing the solutions for tomorrow, those advanced solutions that are needed to step change the transformation. So this is the chapters moving into a broader sphere in today's time frame, while BuildingSmart International remains focused on the future. Chapter activities in the UK. I know Nick has spoken this morning. Two things I wanted to emphasise. For me, the UK chapter will have a great job of work to do, helping the level 2 work go from development to delivery as the final set of the puzzle is put in place. And the second thing is obviously we'll be supporting the digital plan of works implementation. But it is very much trying to help the industry move along that journey. So, an industry community, and I think, Peter, these probably echo your words earlier. Governments are providing the lead, but only users can really define the detail. And we need to provide, in BuildingSmart, we want to provide that open, neutral community where the users, yourselves, can come together to form the standards and reach agreement about the right processes you need to go forward. So I sort of encourage you all to get involved personally, involve your company and organisation. We are open, neutral, not-for-profit and international and process-led. And those are sort of tenets that I think are fundamentally important to provide that sort of comfort and confidence that we are a place where you can engage on a basis of trust, and that you know that the outcome will be shared on an open, neutral basis. So we're aspiring to be like OGC and like W3C for the built environment sector. So how are we helping governments? Solution development, international harmonization, a regime to ensure it works, and leading change and sharing the load. That's my answer to the question. And finally, a plea, how to get involved. We're keen to attract new members. If you're a corporate entity, we'd like to attract you to join international. Individual companies or individuals can join the local chapter. And you can find the details on our website of how to do that. With that, then, and I'll hand over now to the our three.
Okay, so we now have three speakers from Finland, France, and Korea to give us 10 minutes each about the activities of their chapters. So, Tommy, we'd be very pleased to. Yeah.
Shall we change? Seems to be France first.
Okay, so instead of Tommy, we'll have Christophe Gaspang, first of all. That was perfect. You helped me on my time there. Very good. So, Christophe, if you'd like to start with France, please.
I'm from France, and I have in the charge today to represent the French Digital Construction Plan. It's the first time I have to do that. I'm a member of a private company involved in engineering and consultant activity, and I was also in buildingSmart activities since a long time, oriented to the infra. But today, I represent this French government plan, which is something important for us, because I think that I'm not able to make the so brilliant presentation that we heard from the UK, but I wanted to introduce different figures which are explaining what is going to happen. The first thing that in France, the construction industry is based on 80% of the activity is done by very small and very small company. And when we say small or very small, it's less than 10 people inside. 80% of the construction. That's a challenge. And at the same time, we can say that the major of the construction, and the major of the construction in France are very big. They are fancy, big. They are the top in the world, are pulling. So we have to manage that at the same time. And they are pulling because for the major at the moment, more than 60% of their activities are outside France. That's a challenge. So where is the challenge of BIM? And the context, the political context is the following one. The first one is to reduce our budget. Everybody knows that in Europe that we are not the best in terms of managing the budget. And at the same time, it's a political issue, because we have this kind of structure of the industry, we have to we have the will to simplify the regulation. So when you arrive with BIM, with IFC, with the standard, and you are to explain that you are going to simplify the regulation, for this small company, it's not a small affair. So the idea of BIM is coming from the Ministry of Housing, and at the beginning it was a green idea. It was pulled by the former Ministry of Housing, which we were a green representative. The idea was to push the BIM for reducing the OPEX and to improve the sustainability. That's the affair. So, in terms of priorities, first one is to inform, second one to explain, and to have and to and to increase, to incent some experience and experimentation. That's what we try to do. Okay. So the government decided in July to initiate this plan. We say that if we want to translate, it's a digital building plan. And the outcomes expecting is to first improve the efficiency of the construction and oriented to not only to the new buildings but to rebuild the old park of building, to develop BIM and introduce BIM for all of the sectors from the beginning to the end. Sorry. And to identify where it is strategic to develop, to improve the development and the research. And again, it is always incentive voluntary. The idea is to be able to go in the direction of 2017, just 1 year after the UK plan. There is also some other reason, but the idea is to prepare and not to go. It's more a bottom to top policy than a top to bottom. Okay, so the priorities, to summarize the priority, we can say that the following one. Okay, to simplify. And first is to develop the question of the standardization, that to support the standard existing, IFC and so on, in creating the environment around that, but to support the French initiative and to support the works to be done in the different level of standardization, from buildingSmart to ISO, CN, and others, but also to support the activity oriented to the question of product libraries. I think I mentioned at the beginning that the big major, but one of the major is Saint-Gobain, for instance, or Schneider Electric, or company, or Legrand, like that. So they are involving in this research to develop. If you want to speak with this very small company, one of the best issue is very small. Is if you are able to have everything available in a pad, like the windows, the equipment like that. In this case, the very small company are very interested by that. That's the reason. We are pushing this kind of research to be able to provide BIM for everybody. And the BIM is not only the full 3D modeling. It could be only to have the catalog of the object available on site. Second activity, crucial, is the question of the how to facilitate the public procurement and the procurement. So there is two activities around that. The first one is how to manage the regulation as it is. We have a very strong regulation around the public procurement. Is it compliant with BIM? And so on. So it's a one issue. And if we don't want to transform that as a political issue, we don't want to modify the law for that, because so that is an issue. And the second one is how to manage or to modify the contractual structure. So again, but it's linked with the first. If we are able to manage the BIM toolkit and so on, it's an help for everybody. And for all actors, that means to support the school, to support the university, to be able to provide human resources around the BIM. And also, that's the final one, is to support all of the experimentation, to be able to the 2 or 3 next years, to be able to go smoothly to the BIM in procurement and over. And just to finish, Okay. The question is, there is somewhere 20 millions of euro available for that. We discovered that it's possible to have that. It's not a small affair. It's a big affair, and we think that is something really powerful to help all of the industry. So how we are going to do that? If you want to go smoothly but not to spend the money for nothing. The first one, we have this structure. At the top, you have a steering committee, which is representative of all of the professional union, including also the various Ministry of Housing, Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Budget. That's the reason we need to have also a structure to be able to justify a roadmap, and first to create a roadmap and to justify how we are going to spend the money. So you have a body, a technical body, with full-time people around that, and a technical committee to help this body to make decision. And then we are going to proceed project by project with call for project and a bidding with that. That's the structures to be able to spend and to increase our knowledge about that. That's it. Thank you.
Christoph, thank you very much. Okay, Tommy, if I can invite you to come up to the platform here. Is it the right one now? Yes. Hey, success. So, Tommy,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Okay. Which microphones I'm going to use? Okay, these ones. My name is Tomi Henttinen, and I'm an architect by profession, even though I have been doing BIM consulting for 15 years already. So maybe not so much like normal architectural design work. In Finland, BIM is always open standards. We work with open standards. My company, Grafikon Oy, we have been involved within the years for over 10 years now, with over 60 real-life BIM projects utilizing IFC in the daily routines of the project. And that's in design and construction phase. Nowadays, it's also in infrastructure projects where we are utilizing open standards, even though I'm not an infrastructure specialist. But anyway, the land XML format is widely used in Finland. So in Finland, BIM is always IFC. At the moment, we are in the, let's say, in the tornado phase. In UK terms, you could say that at least in design and construction, we are already in level 3. Maybe like 5 years ago, we were in a sort of same kind of situation that the UK is at the moment, trying to sort of find the path. But nowadays, BIM is more or less like a normal routine. Maybe not mainstream, but normal routine in projects. And I expect that in 5 years, nobody is even talking about BIM. It's just a normal way to do things. We did, this is from two years ago, we made a study, actually together with NBS, so it's the same study that has been conducted here in UK and a couple of other countries, and we found out a couple of interesting things. Our private sector is not, by that time, they were not doing that well, or they were not utilizing BIM in large scale, but I think that now we are doing the same study or same survey this April again, so I will expect to see a little bit higher numbers on those. But in public sector, the utilization is that was already quite good 2 years ago. Interesting figure is also the use of BIM among architects and engineers. 2/3 are already, or were using 2 years ago. 2/3 were already using BIM in everyday operations, and 27% said that in 5 years they will be using. Then there was this 6% who had no plans. I think that they have plans to retire. A construction company, that's sort of divided into there's like two. So the large companies are utilizing BIM throughout the design and construction process. And then the smaller ones, there are some companies who haven't even heard about BIM. I was hoping that Patrick McLeamy would use his famous BIM Bam Boom presentation, so I could just refer to him. But maybe you should Google that. I'm not going through that. You should Google that. It's really nice. BIM in here meaning BIM in design and design phase, and BAM meaning the building BIM-based assembly, which is the construction phase. In those I would say that we are quite good in Finland. We know how to do it, and we use it in daily operations. Then in boom phase, which is the maintenance and operations, we are not there yet. So even though we are using BIM in design and construction phase widely, in the operations and maintenance, it's close to zero. My idea of BIM is that together with other trends such as Internet of Things and others, we would get to the next phase, which is BIM-enabled business, which is bringing something totally new to this discussion. So it's something that, because now BIM is basically, to be honest, BIM is just, okay, first we were using pencil, then we were using CAD, now we are using BIM. The same thing done differently. But if we go to BIM-enabled business, then we are doing things totally different way. We have totally new stuff coming up. And this is sort of what we are at the moment trying to get our knives sharpened in Finland. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Toi. Yes, if I can ask In-Han Kim to come up, please, and to tell us about what's happening in Korea. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I studied in UK about 21 years ago. I got PhD in UK. I'm also an architect. Let me introduce myself here. It's a great honor to speak in this honorable place, Riva. Now I'm teaching in Korea, and also I founded buildingSmart Korea in 1998. Actually, I studied IFC or STEP. In 1993, I developed the early version of IFC with Thomas Leif. 1993, I think. So I'm one of the early members of buildingSmart. Now I'm in charge of Korea Architectural Institute of Korea for Architectural IT Committee. So Korea is now heavily involved in BIM and IT in architecture. Korea was much behind from other buildingSmart members, especially in UK and European countries. But our country invested a lot of research fund in IT infrastructure and digital technology. in the industrial area. Now we are going to invest in construction and design area. As I have only 10 minutes, so there is actually BIM in public area and BIM in practices. So the public area, for the public area, our government invests and support by providing research fund. BuildingSmart Korea means BIM in Korea as well in Finland. There was no BIM or no effort how to implement BIM in Korea before BuildingSmart started in Korea. BuildingSmart Korea developed a national guide for BIM in Korea, and also many public agencies BIM guide, and developed a guide for public company, design and construction company. So this is some of the guide and standard developed for our government and agencies and public companies. For less than several years, we developed guide for public procurement service. It's a GSA equivalent organization in Korea. And also we developing guide for Ministry of Defense and construction as well. A few years ago, our government invested a lot of money on open BIM. For this event, this Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, we had a international summit for BuildingSmart at BRE. There were more than 20 Korean delegates participated. They are mostly participate on this project. It's about 6 years project, now became to 7 years project, started last year, and government supported about $30 million US, and with money from private sector, it is more than $40 million. This project until next year is stage 1, but after 2016 or early 2017, we are going to second stage of this project, and our government recently announced to invest much more fund on open BIM and BIM technology. Actually, Korea Registered Architect Association also participate this project, and KICT is equivalent to BRE in UK, also heavily involved in this project. And many other big construction and design company also involved in this project. And Kyunghee University, I'm leading this project, and also BuildingSmart Korea is partially leading this project. So this is the main drive force for open BIM in Korea currently. Okay. This is a rough diagram what we are going to realize in the future by developing open BIM standard and guidelines and framework and core technologies. Currently, we are concentrating on automated or semi-automated building permission system in Korea. Currently, we only submit digital 2D data for the permission, but we try to move on IFC-based BIM model for the permission in the future. So we are developing all the core technology for that. The first target of this project is enhancement of design quality, not the construction yet. So at the first stage, we concentrate on quality of design rather than construction, because design is the most key stage for the saving cost for the construction in the future stages, or also for the maintenance stages. So we concentrate on design, libraries and guides for that. And in the future, we're going to apply those technology to whole built environment, like railway and plant and road and water. So this is the basic technology for the future. So this is one of the key projects we are targeting just now. We want to save money and cost and resources for the building permission. The architect needs to supply only one single IFC-based model, BIM model, for the approval, and then by using those models, the person who permit the building check the energies and cost and all the regulations automatically. So this is the actual scope of each module, how we developed for the permissions. If you see the bottom left spaces, we're developing about 10 different subtiers, it's K-BIM subtiers for permission and collaborations and logic. We analyze all the building code and atomic sentences and then put in the database, and we use them for the automatic code checking in the future. And if you see right bottom spaces, places, we can see the center environment. That's for the building permission environment in Korea. So they check BIM model for the approval. So this is a one cycle processes for the process, yes. And another module for K-BIM logic, and this is SS. This SS Lite is for the small versions. Design office can use it without internet connection. And if they do self-checking, finished, they submit for the approval office. And they can check the energy requirement required by our government. And also, one notable thing is, from the BIM model, we generate drawings for the permission. I think more than 50% of drawing can be generated from this software. And this is submission environment and software for Korean submission system. As I'm running out of the time, maybe 1 or 2 more minutes. Yeah. This is the standard and content development by BuildingSmart Korea framework. So this is the one-page roadmap, how we want to do from the design stages, authorizations, and construction FM management space, and using by single BIM model. So she's watching me. So this is the last goal. Yeah. This is the aim of my dream, or our dream for BuildingSmart Korea, BuildingSmart, to realize we want to have an open, not closed BIM, open BIM for every phase of the construction in the future for free. Thank you very much. Yes.
in hand. Thank you very much for being so gentlemanly about that. Thank you, I really appreciate it. So it gives me great pleasure now to introduce Leif Granholm, Tekla, as sponsor talk. Thank you very much, Leif.
Thank you. Yeah, most of the previous speakers, or many, have been architects. I'm not an architect. I'm a mechanical engineer by training and by mastering, and I'm in manufacturing technology mechanical engineer, not a HVAC engineer. So I might have a bit different views on BIM and a bit controversial views on BIM. So I'm here representing Tekla officially, but I'm a man of many hats. So my only job within Tekla and Trimble, as you probably know, Tekla has been acquired by Trimble, so we are a Trimble company. My sole job and only job in the corporation is to promote and advocate use of open standards, both within Trimble, Tekla, and in the general market, and to develop those standards. So I work heavily with the standards organizations. I have many positions in buildingSmart. I work with OGC to develop the geospatial standards. I work with ISO, many committees, and with CEN, and my recent addition is ILA, In Location Alliance, working with indoor positioning. So I have a very great job of advancing. We have heard so many good things about open standards here today. So, as this is a sponsor speech, so I take the freedom to take a little commercial break first and talk a bit about Trimble, because Trimble is not that well known in the BIM arena, so I thought I'd spend a few minutes to talk about Trimble. Trimble's slogan is transforming the way the world works, and added implicitly through technology. So Trimble as a company has started, you probably know Trimble and GPSs, Trimble and sensors, total stations, all kinds of sensing equipment. Trimble even started developing consumer equipment, but quite quickly Trimble changed its strategy to focus on the professional market and came up with this transforming work slogan. Then we went on to connectivity, modeling, and analytics is the last one. And we serve a lot of industries, and most of the industries we serve have to do with the built environment. So we deal with different aspects of the built environment. We have support both for civil construction, building construction and operation, and of course the common thing to those is the site. So as the site is very important to us, Trimble starts from the kind of very roots, from the bottom up, from the kind of mud. The kind of term that our director uses is moving dirt from one side of the road to the other, and he says this very often, but I won't be using that so much. So then a few words about Trimble Buildings. Trimble has been quite busy acquiring companies, and as you saw in the development, Trimble has been moving from hardware to become more and more a software company. So today, a big portion, I don't know exactly how much, but close to half probably of Trimble's turnover is already software and services, so that's changing fast. We have acquired a lot of companies, the most known SketchUp, Tekla, Vico, and the latest ones are Gary Technologies, which we just acquired late last year, and Manhattan Software developing FM software. And our kind of, what we focus on is constructible model. That's kind of understandable. We come from the bottom up, we come from the actual construction, from the site, from the mud, if you like. So our point is generating structural information that is to construct so much information that you can construct just on the structured information. You don't, in principle, our goal is that you don't need any documents. You don't need 2D documents at all. That's our long-term goal. And our latest product, which we have announced, is something called Trimble Connect, which actually is based on Gary G-Team, if you have heard about that, which is a collaboration hub, and we in Trimble believe strongly that these collaboration hubs, which all the major BIM vendors already have, will be the kind of focus of application development in the future. Most of the new applications will be based on these kind of hubs. And the interesting thing in BIM in general is that the focus is clearly shifting from producing the information, generating, modeling, creating models, to consuming the information. I'm coming back to this a lot in the presentation later on. But then we go to what is BIM. I think I earned the right to have opinions about this because I was one of the few or the only one who put up the hand when Anne asked in the morning, is there anybody who has any issues with the UK BIM concept? So you have heard about this already. There is no real consensus of what BIM is. Is it software, process, whatever, and even the acronym. So we take the B, it can mean building as a verb, building as a noun. M can mean management or model or modeling, and the latest for the B I heard today, which is the best one, bubble information management. So we have many explanations for the acronym. Most common perception, if you go around the world and ask people, they think that BIM is software. If you are using some BIM software, you are doing BIM. That's the kind of common perception. And you hear these others, but my favorite, remember my background as a manufacturing engineer, it's just a technology. It's nothing more, nothing less than a technology. And the issue I have with the UK BIM initiative is that the BIM as concept is kind of inflated and bloated and made so big that there is even a theory of how to sabotage standardization work and making something you are trying to do unproportionally big so that it becomes impossible to implement is one of those methods, documented methods on how to sabotage standardization work. And that's why I want to go the other way around, very much so. I want to make it very clear what BIM is. And what is it then, in my opinion? Well, it's a very simple thing, actually, because it's a thing that how we deal with information, how we create information, how we transfer information, how we consume information. And today, that's done through drawings mostly. So BIM today has been used mostly to create drawings. That's 90% of the use of BIM. You model, but then you create drawings based on that. So the technology, in my opinion and my point of view in BIM, is that we transfer information processing from being human readable and human understandable documents with graphics. Because graphics, this is very important. Graphics is a visualization of geometry. And then when we go to BIM, we don't deal with graphics, because graphics is for human consumption. Graphics is for humans to understand and perceive, whereas geometry is the mathematical definition of something physical. And that's for consumer consumption. That's for software to understand and deal with automatically. So for me, BIM is the transition that we go from processing information in general in human-readable format to processing it machine-readable format, so that software can automatically understand and understand and act upon the information it receives without human intervention, which is our automatic information processing, as simple. So we extend IT from, today we call about communication technology, but we extend it to also include automatic processing, so we can do things automatically. And here, of course, in drawings, appearance is important because a human looks at it. Whereas when we talk about structured data, the structure is important because computers are stupid. They are humans are very adaptable, so they can understand some small scribble on the backside of the cigarette package, which software can't. So for the software, the structure has to be very clear, explicit, and exact down to the last bit, which is very, very different. And this is what makes BIM a disruptive technology, because it changes very, very fundamentally how we treat information, both in the creation phase, but specifically in the consumption phase. As I said earlier, it's clear that the focus in BIM is shifting from production to consumption of information. And that's going to change the industry hugely. But my point here is that we need to start this bottom-up, not top-down, because this is a disruptive technology. It's a very different way of handling information, so we have to learn. Before we can make our processes and before we can change our business models, we have to learn the new technology, how to use it. And that's very important. Having heard this explanation of BIM as a technology, I have a quiz which I have made to thousands of people. Not one have guessed it, and those who have heard it from me before don't say anything. What was the predecessor technology of BIM with this explanation of BIM? Which technology is BIM replacing? It's totally obvious when you hear it. No? Nobody? Still goes, nobody has knows it. It's the copy. No, copying machine. Because copying machine and printer technology has been the technology which has been used to convey information in the construction process, and still is. And BIM will replace that. We will not put information on paper. And here also, if you have a PDF on the screen, it's more or less a copying machine, because it just reproduces what is there without any processing. The point with BIM is that when you have structured information, you can show it in very many different ways. And the consumer of the information can influence how it goes. With drawings, it's the producer of the information who tries to guess what information is the consumer going to need. But now when we go to software consumption of information, it's the consumer of the information who can decide how the information is presented for him. And there we come to new technologies like augmented reality and other things. So it's a very, very fundamental change, and it's a bigger change that most people realize. Even though I try to squash down the BIM as a concept, it's actually bigger than people really realize. And then if we talk about the structure and objects, one theme I have here, I have heard many BIM evangelists say that when we have a model, we have a single truth of the building. No, we don't. Because the trades and levels of development, how decisions are made, in which order they are made, that's not going to change anytime soon. That's going to take years to change, and we have to learn the technology. So for the same physical phenomena, we have different representation, because modeling is always an abstraction of reality. When we make an abstraction, that's always for a purpose. And an abstraction is a simplification of reality, so we can't model everything exactly as it is. We have to make it simpler and make a simplification. And that means that we need different representations for the same thing. So for a wall, an architect models it as one object. The engineer and detailer maybe as 1,000 objects. So then we have also other types of objects, logical objects, abstract objects. But also I count all the information describing the process, because we have the same thing there. Today it's processed mostly as documents, but also that can be made as structured information, which means it can be processed automatically in receiving the data and when consuming the data. And this is a huge change. So then Open BIM, well, I won't go, you have heard many times this already today, but the important is that it's not just IFC. As I work with many standards organizations, there are many other standards than IFC. CityGML is the most obvious. With that, you can model buildings from the point of view of using the building, how it looks, how it serves its users. You can fully model a building, but not for construction, because IFC scope is construction primarily. And so we have many others. KML is the Google Earth format, and there are many others. There are new ones being developed. There is an InfraGML coming from OGC with the purpose of modeling infrastructure, and there are others. So then Tommy showed also this almost the same picture, this BIM adoption. So if we put now BIM, and with just BIM here, I mean what I call legacy BIM. With that I mean that we create models, but the main way of communicating those models is creating drawings and documents from them and then sending away the documents, and you keep the model. Then if we put Open BIM here, with Open BIM I mean that you really communicate using the structured semantic data, which can be consumed automatically. And it's totally clear that this traditional BIM is beyond this chasm. There is a hole where some new technologies, many new technologies fall, and this kind of traditional BIM is clearly beyond the chasm. There is no going back to that. We just do 2D drawing, and the 3D model is here, and we manually transfer that to paper. No way are we going back to that. That's already some different markets are different places here. I would say Nordic countries are somewhere here at the top already moving to pragmatists. Others are. But as clearly is Open BIM still ahead of the chasm. So this is my job, to gather the momentum to make the jump over for the chasm. And this is BuildingSmart's position on BIM, sharing. Open, structured, semantic, standard data. Sounds like a mouthful, like a bundle, but it's actually quite simple. Open means that it's available in the first place. The information. Structured means that we have a structure, object structure in BIM, most often, very seldom relational. Semantic means that we know the meaning of the data. We know if we have some geometry, we know what that represents in the real world. We know what the attributes mean, and we have a general understanding of the semantics. And standard means that the structure and the semantics are commonly understood. So without getting the information from some other source, we know the information structure, and we can consume the information automatically. And so IFC fulfills this to 100%. Then a bit more elaboration on this ambiguous modeling, that we don't have the model or a single model representing the building, because we have different, an object is different for different disciplines, different parties, different points of view. So if we take a slab, the architect models typically the slab of a floor as one object, and for the engineer it might be 3 objects. For the detailer it can be 10,000 objects. And it's the same physical phenomena, it's the same thing which we can touch and use. So there is no way we are going. And this is a question of what you are doing and trades. Because if architect typically massages a building, makes rather big changes, makes it bigger, smaller, different shape, other things. And that you can't do with the detail model. That you have to do with the architectural model. And here I'm coming that this is not a sequential process going these levels of development. In today's construction world, they have to coexist, cooperate throughout the project. Because even very late in projects in these days, you can have big changes. If you are building a mall, for instance, you might initially have planned that there will be a textile shop here, and then comes the owner, says to the designers, oops, there was a new change, we need a spa here instead. So you might have very big changes very late in projects these days. Also, how we consume the information is very important about information management. With this concept, which I'm proposing, we can do the information management in the same way as documents with this reference model principle. So when we receive information in IFC format, CityGML format, or InfraGML format, we don't convert that to native objects. We keep it as IFC, and our software can do so that they can interoperate in real time. So we have our own native objects, which we own, and then we have the incoming standard data, which we keep in its original format, and we have functionality to make interoperability between those. And specifically, if we take this progression of level of development, so that we go from the architect's single object slab to the engineer slab, so we have application functionality, which can take this incoming architect object, leave it intact, it doesn't change it, and then create the engineering object, so it includes the business logic of what an engineer does, and creates relationships. So as we are doing, and this is using these semantic web technologies that you do have lots of activities going on now in buildingSmart, and are really forcefully developing how to do this to get a reasonable workflow without disrupting information management totally from the way we are doing it today. And this is very important in this kind of, we have to learn, we have to stepwise move into BIM. We can't move in one huge stride. We will fall flat on our noses if we try to take two big strides, because it's really disruptive in the way we handle information. So this you have seen in many other presentations that we end up with a bunch of models. We don't end up with the model. And in typical Helsinki Music House, which was a very prominent BIM project, there was about 150 models in the end in the project, which went on to facility management. So a few words about why. Why are we going over to semantic data? So this just automatic receiving and using the information automatically is a big thing for the future, but that's a smaller thing for the long time for future. So technology, robots, augmented reality. I think that augmented reality will be the killer app for semantic data. That will be the main way we will consume information in the future, and that's also virtual reality. We learned like this week we are starting an augmented reality workshop or work group in buildingSmart, and we learned that it's mixed reality because you have augmented, you have diminished reality, and there was a third one, which I don't remember what it was. But we have all this kind of drones. This drone is, by the way, John Bacchus from SketchUp. He has built this himself. So it's fairly easy today just buy components and build this stuff yourself, make flyable robots. We have the ping pong playing robot. You might have seen this Kuka advertise of a robot playing ping pong against the champion. Well, that's fake. But this one can really play autonomously, totally by itself, grandma ping pong, slow ping pong. It can't handle smashes, but that robot technology is moving ahead quite fast. Augmented reality with different kinds of equipment, and here I really believe that the main use for this will be all kinds of wearables. This kind of using it with tablet is just early development. Now, the real use, you can buy helmets with a heads-up display in the helmet for construction workers. That's available off the shop shelf today. So this is going to be the way. Then robots, I'll talk more about this in a moment. And of course, this is very important. As we all know, we have challenges recruiting good people to the construction industry, so technology is definitely a way to do that. That's how we are going to. This is from Arto Kiviniemi's picture. He is working hard on this. But then, as the last thing, I'm going to show a kind of use case, what this could or will mean in practice. So, of course, Tekla's background is in steel, so we come from the steel industry, structural steel, and we are working heavily on this fabrication BIM. So where we are today is that we have this kind of flat pack steel delivery, like IKEA flat pack furniture. The factories can more or less automatically produce all the parts needed for structural steel. You can have a factory making 30,000 tons steel a year, a lot, with the part of the factory running with 2 guys producing these parts. But then when you go to the assembly and welding, 250, 300 guys processing and welding these same parts which have been produced automatically by the factory. But that's about to change. So what's coming next is assembly and welding, robotic welding. And this is a very interesting point. What's happening now is that the next generation of machinery, also for steel but also for other disciplines, is going to be that you build some kind of pedestal and you bolt on a standard industrial robot, because these robots are so good, so precise, so exact, so reliable today that there is no point in building any kind of specialized hardware to do these things. You just take the robot, and one interesting thing here is that makes the project of producing the machine to be a software project. So it's 90% of the job to create a machine like this is writing software, which is quite interesting. So different kinds of assembly, and these machines are being kind of designed and manufactured. They are not mainstream yet, but they are becoming. But then, interesting point is because the information supply for this, how this flat pack steel is made, is used to DSTV and DVG, i.e. 2D formats. No good for welding or assembly. For welding or assembly, you have to have 3D format, and this has been my pet project for almost 10 years. I have 7 years worked with that to make that this will happen with IFC, and that's now happening. So we have a project today together with the American Institute for Steel Construction, Georgia Tech, Tekla, FISEP, and there are many others now in the project already, where we are developing now a model view definition to take IFC all the way to the NC machines, control the NC machines directly with IFC, and that's happening. And this is a really, really good use case for how the semantic data is going to be used. And this will further automation, both the information processing automation and the actual fabrication machinery automation forward a big deal. And that's really needed, and that's a kind of real boon of BIM. And the interesting thing with this new generation of machines is also that it's not just on-site or off-site. It's also on-site, because the new machines are much smaller and cheaper, so you can do the fabrication on-site as well. And that's a very interesting thing, because transporting like rebar cages and other things is quite hard. So, okay, that was all. Thank you.